want to take you through how to build an e-commerce business that works for you, whether you have a side hustle that you want to take into full-time income, or whether you're already running a full-time e-commerce business and you just want to turn it into a lifestyle business or an asset that someone could buy from you. I figured this out after trying every single type of e-commerce business you can imagine, from dropshipping to reselling to white labeling to building my own brands. And now I have an e-commerce business that doubles every single month. It's insanely profitable, and I only work on it a couple of hours a day. What I learned though, that there is actually 5 stages to growing an e-commerce business. So today I'm going to take you through every one of those stages. I'm going to take you through the pros, the cons, exactly what you need to do to grow your business from a side hustle to an exit ready business that can generate wealth for you personally. Let me put my phone down here and we will get started. All right, let's take you through the 5 stages. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, stage 1 is our entry level. This is when we get into the market. And then stage 5 is our exit level. Now, our goal is to start at stage 1 and use that to fuel each next stage so we can finally get to the exit stage. It's nigh impossible to go from entry to exit without going through those first stages if you've never done e-commerce before, okay? So what we might do here is I might also pull down an axis here. So we've got an axis of cash and the money that you can make in these businesses, right? So if we think about entry-level stage, typically in entry-level, we don't really make that much money, right? We're just starting out where, well, we're not making in money, we're making in skills and things that we learn, right? So this is our cash line. So we might make a little bit. And then as we go through each of the stages, our income goes up, but it might stagnate, come down a little bit. Right at the end, it then scoops this way. The problem is a lot of people sort of stick around here, or they get to here and they see a fall off and they jump out, right? So what we need to do is we need to know where we're at and what stage we're in so that we can prepare ourselves for this huge exit at the end, okay? These are the 5 stages. So let's go through entry-level stage. Now, entry-level stage was my first side hustle that I ran while I was working full-time. And I was selling like AirPod cases, I was selling, Apple Watches, I was selling lots of little bits and pieces on eBay and on Shopify. And the way I was doing that was via probably the most well-known e-commerce model was dropshipping. Now, for those of you that don't know what dropshipping is, it's basically where you sell other people's products, but you don't need to hold stock. So you sell the product on your website or on eBay, and then the customer gives you the money. And then you take that money and you go buy it from a supplier, and that supplier then ships it out to the customer, and you just take a little bit of profit from that. The good thing about that is you don't need to hold the stock. You don't need to pay for the stock up front. The customer pays you for the stock, you pay the supplier, and then you keep the money in between. The only problem with that is the amount that you keep is really low. And the other problem with it is that you don't own that product, right? A supplier owns that product. And that means that they can sell that to thousands of other people. And then you've got to try and find these winning products all the time to stay ahead of the trends. And then as soon as a trend comes, someone else takes that product and then your market is gone. And that's exactly what happened with me with the AirPod cases. We used to sell these little cases that you could put your AirPods into, and we were able to sell them for like $30, $40 each, and was only costing us $1. And we did that for like 6 or 7 months, but then other people caught onto it. They started selling it for $9 and we lost all our profit, right? So we weren't in control of the business there. But the cool thing about that business was I learned 3 really core things that would lead me into the next stage. And these are the 3 things that you're going to learn, right? So this is the learn phase. And we learn 3 really core things that are going to set you up. The first one is we learn all about how to drive traffic to a store, right? If you don't know how to drive traffic, then you're not going to be able to do anything else, because traffic is the lifeblood of e-commerce, okay? That's the first thing you learn. You learn exactly how to do that. The second thing you learn is you learn tech. You learn what tools do you need to know? Like, how do you build a Shopify store? How do you integrate with, say, eBay or Amazon? How do you run ads? How do you do all the techie stuff? And then the final thing you learn is you learn how to do an offer, right? And an offer is by far the most important thing in e-commerce, because if you're selling the same things as other people, you need to put an offer in front of them that makes them buy the product from you instead of someone else, right? So learning how to market and do offers in front of people are really, really important, because that will help you with the next stages. And these are good foundational skills to learn. Now, the problem with dropshipping is that you actually have no control, right? Well, you can do traffic and all those sort of things. What you don't have control of is the product and the supply chain. And I can give an example. When I was selling the smartwatches for kids, I had no control over that supply chain. And we were selling lots. We were selling on Amazon. We were selling on Shopify. And what happened was our supply just disappeared and they stopped selling them. And we had all these orders that had come in, people wanting their watches for Christmas, and the supplier had just disappeared and we weren't able to place those orders. So we had to refund every single one of those orders, had to disappoint people. Kids couldn't get their gifts for Christmas. So I had no control, which led me on to the next stage where I wanted to get control back. So that led me into the model of reselling. Now, reselling was the business that made me my first $1 million in under 12 months. And reselling is different to dropshipping because you're actually selling a product that's proven and you're selling a product that has some brand equity. It's products that people want. And all you need to do is take the skills that you learn, like you've got to learn how to do traffic and technology, and then you apply it to product that's been proven. And that's where you can start to really, really win. So in our store, we sold boxing gloves and martial arts equipment, and they were all branded like Adidas and Nike and things like that. So we were able to sell known products, amplify with all the things that we learned, and it went really, really well. It was great. We learned some really important lessons here that led us to the next stage, right? So not only did it upgrade our skills, it gave me some really important knowledge that I still use today. The first one is understanding the importance of cash flow. Okay, so the difference with a reselling model is you have to buy the stock up front, right? We don't get the money in first and then get someone else to ship it out. We have to buy some stock and then we have to ship it out ourselves. So I was shipping it out of my garage. But we don't need to hold lots of stock because the supplier has already, the stock on hand. We can just buy it as we need it. So we can just do small quantities of stock. But we needed to invest in stock and make sure that we're getting enough sales in to be able to keep buying stock and to remain profitable. But in order to, outdo the competition, because other people were still selling this product, we need to learn the next step, which was how do we actually merchandise our store? Like, how do we make it that people buy from us instead of other people that are selling the same product? So we had to learn merchandising and, how do we do marketing? How do we make people choose us instead of them, right? So that was our merchandising side of the world. And then the third thing I had to learn here was I had to learn logistics, right? If we think about drop shipping, I didn't have to care about logistics. I just sent the order to the supplier and they shipped it out for me. Whereas here, I had to learn how to put labels on boxes. I had to learn how to pack boxes. I had to learn how to, get couriers and transportation, all those sorts of things. I had to learn how to get stock in. So logistics was the thing. So I learned cash flow, merchandising, logistics, which helped me get to stage number 3 because there really was a drawback of this reseller model. Even though I made $1 million out of it, there was a huge drawback that you have to be aware of, but you have to go through it to move on to the next stage. And that drawback was that this was not an asset, right? This is no asset. I was just selling other people's products. And I was still at the mercy of the supplier, okay? So I had no asset, I was just selling someone else's asset, making them rich. I was making some money out of it, but it wasn't enough to sort of get me to this exit level. So that's where we move on to e-commerce model number 3. And this is where we go into white labeling. Now, white label is a really interesting model. It's basically where you create a brand and you stick that brand on the side of a known product, right? Or a white label product. So it could be things like supplements or skincare, or it could be electronic equipment. It could be anything like that. Now, this was the model that I put in play. And what we did is we white labeled electronic earpod, right? And we called it ColorPod. So these were these little tiny headphones, like wireless headphones. And we had all these different colors and we called them ColorPods and we created a brand around it. Now we found the supplier off Alibaba and they created some stock and we had to invest in that stock and we created a beautiful brand around it. And so this stage is really the stage where we're actually going to own our destiny, okay? So we're going to own it. And what you learn at this stage, which will take you on to stage 4, is you learn all about branding, right? And branding is the thing that starts to set you apart. So with this model, we learned how to do branding, and that's not just graphics and logos, but it's, how to understand who you're selling to and why you're selling and why someone would buy your product. The second thing we learned here was how to negotiate, right? If you can imagine, as you start to get a little bit bigger and we're starting to get a little bit more cash, right? We're making some money here, we get a bit more cash. We're going to start spending that cash investing it in stock. And so we need to learn how to negotiate and get things for the right price at the right time, make sure we don't get ripped off. So this is the back and forth with suppliers and all those sorts of things. So we really learn a negotiation skills, which really help us in these next few stages. And the other thing you learn at this stage is how to forecast. So because we have to hold stock and we're the only ones that can sell this stock, we need to tell the supplier how much of what we want to buy. So forecasting becomes really, really important because if you buy too much stock, you're going to waste too much money. If you don't buy enough stock, then you're going to sell out and people are going to be disappointed. You're going to have to wait for the stock to come in. So, you've got to forecast 3 months worth of stock because it's going to take you 3 months to get the stock, which means maybe you need 6 months worth of stock, which means you need cash that can buy 6 months worth of stock. There's all these sorts of things you need to think about in forecasting, but it's the most important part because if you don't know this, then you can't move on to stage 4 and you can't move on to stage 5, okay? Now this was a great model. White labeling was great. Color pods went really, really well, but there was a drawback with this model that you need to be aware of, and which is why I needed to move on to stage 4. And that was that there was no moat. If you've heard the term moat before, that basically means that, anyone else, there's nothing around me stopping other people doing the same thing. So I didn't have exclusivity with that supplier. Someone else could come in, get a similar product and put a different brand on it, right? So there was no real moat. While I had a brand, the product still wasn't mine. And that's why the next stage is super important. And this is when we build our own product, okay? This is where the money really starts to get made. And as you can see, we've gone up here, but we've dropped down. And the reason we've dropped down is we have to go through a few different things here. And we really learned this about 12 months ago when we launched our product. I'll show you what it is here. This is a product that we've developed, which is Dose. It's an instant liquid coffee, and no one else has made it, right? It's our own formulation, it's our own blend, it's our own proprietary method of creating the coffee, which means that we had to invest money in doing that. And that's why we see during this cash flow period, we see a decline in cash. But if you've done all these stages correctly, then you should have the cash to be able to invest in your own product. And this is where we start to move to that exit phase. Now, the great thing about when you start building your own product is there's a few key things that you learn. The first one is you learn how to do research and development, right? Now, I had no idea how to make coffee. I had no idea how to do this thing. I just had the idea. So I learned, how do I find the right beans? How do I find the right suppliers? How do I find the right manufacturers? What do I do with bottling? How do I find lids? How do I find labels? I had to do all the research and development just to bring this one little product to market. Like, it looks really simple, but it's actually quite complicated. So I had to learn a new skill again. And then the next thing you need to learn after this research and development, because all of that costs money, is you need to understand economics. And this doesn't mean like, global economics or political economics or anything like that. We need to understand unit economics, okay? Because if I'm buying 10,000 of these bottles and I'm filling them with 10,000 liters of coffee and I'm buying 10,000 lids and 10,000 labels, that all costs money. And I need to understand the exact costs of that. So I need to then know how to price it. I then need to know how much I can use to acquire a customer and do all those other sorts of things. So unit economics is the most important thing you need to learn at this stage, because that determines your margin, it determines how you can grow, it determines your trajectory of how we get this real hockey stick effect. And the other thing we learned here was we needed to actually understand our legals. And as your business grows and you get to this sort of size, there's lawyers and everything that get involved. You need to have your insurances. You need to make sure that all your T's are crossed and your dots are I'd, your I's are dotted. You know what I mean? Because we're going to be starting to set up now for exit. So we need to get everything under control. So we learn all the legal side of things here. But this wasn't the final piece of the puzzle. If we just have a product, that's not really everything that's going to get us to exit. So at this stage, we're not ready for an exit, okay? We have a great product and we've taken it to market. But what we really want to be able to do is we want to move on to the final level, which is building a brand. If we're looking to exit a company, people don't buy products, they buy businesses, they buy brands. They want to pick that brand up and they want to put it inside their own company, okay? So what we now do in stage 5 is we start to build that brand. And the way that we build the brand and that company is we need to make sure we treat it like an asset, okay? It's no longer a cash flow generating vehicle. It's an asset that we're building and we're setting up and structuring it in such a way that it's ready for sale. So that someone can come in and say, that looks really good. I'll give you a couple of $1 million, 10 million, 100 million, whatever it is. I can pick it up and I can put it inside my business. And that's the true goal that we have here. So in order to set it up as an asset, what we need to do is we need to make sure we're building a team, learning how to build the right team of A players and superstars around us. We need to look at different ways that we could expand this business, right? Where else can we sell into? Well, I'm currently only selling in Australia. Maybe I can sell globally. Am I selling on Amazon? Am I selling on eBay? Am I selling, in retail stores? How can we expand this business out even further? And then the last thing we need to understand is, how do we value this business? What's the valuation? How do we understand what's someone willing to pay for this business, right? And when you can get to that, then you can put a price on it. And if you have a price on your business, then you can go out to market and someone can buy it off you. And that's when we get to our exit phase. So these are the 5 stages. We've got learning, we've got upgrading, we've got owning, we've got product, we've got brand. And each of those has a different model associated with it. We've got dropshipping, we've got reselling, we've got white labeling, we've got product, we've got brand. And each of those have skills in them that stack on top of each other. Now, my guess is if you're watching this, is you're probably gonna be at the learn and upgrade phase. And if you are, the next video right here is gonna show you how to get your first 50 Shopify sales, no matter which one of these stages you're at.